Tragedy in Lakewood, Washington yesterday when 4 police officers were murdered in an execution-style ambush by a gunman that was being sought as we prepared today's report. Authorities are looking for a man with a long history of criminal and psychotic behavior in both Washington state and in Arkansas. I was governor during some of the time of his incarceration here.
Well, that's Huckabee trying to cover up the fact that he granted clemency to Maurice Clemens, the alleged gunman. And the fact is that Huckabee should take responsibility for this. He did this for political reasons. There's no question about it. I have read the brief in support of the executive clemency application for this murderer when Huckabee was governor. And the fact of the matter is there's much more to the story than meets the eye. Huckabee granted clemency to many murderers, in fact, far too many murderers, and Huckabee has a record of doing so. Even former Governor Eliot Spitzer talked about the police shootings in Washington state. Listen to clip 14.
During my tenure, we had the counsel to the governor vet, and there were every year many, many requests for clemency and commutation, every one of these permutations. Hundreds of them would come in. We would vet them down to 1 or 2 that stood for a particular principle, where there was an issue perhaps of actual innocence, or where there was a gross imbalance between the penalty and the crime that had been committed. Now, I'm not going to jump in and take cheap shots here. Obviously, Governor Huckabee is going to be, this is a nightmare for him, and most of all, of course, for the victims in this case. This is everybody's worst disaster.
Listen to clip 15.
I would get a very specific memo saying, here are the 10 cases that have made it through. Which of these do you believe is an appropriate choice for clemency? And I think I only chose 1 or 2, and they're very, very limited because, frankly, the judicial system is supposed to work where judges and juries impose sentences, and there's a rationale for it. Unless there's an issue of actual innocence or a gross imbalance in the way a sentence has been imposed, usually it should not be handed out.
Understood.
I would blame the ACLU for the release of this cop killer, and I'll tell you why. They've had a thing called a sentencing project for years where they have claimed that black men are unfairly targeted by the police and the judicial system, that black men are unfairly tried, there are too many black men in prison, they're all innocent, they're only put there because it's a racist system. I've heard all the garbage. It is the ACLU who forced Governor Huckabee's hand, in my opinion. Of course, Huckabee is ultimately responsible, but make no mistake about it. It's the liberals in the ACLU and like organizations, the National Lawyers Guild and such, who forced many, many governors and many, many judges to release dangerous criminals. And we know the results are usually tragic for innocent people. That's all there is to it. In plain English, again, it proves that liberalism is dangerous for children, women, and other living things, including police now. Now, let's go down to the actual killing. You say to yourself, how could 4 armed policemen, there's 3 policemen and a woman, it's 4, correct, Beowulf? 4. 3 men and a woman. They're all armed. They're sitting in a coffee shop working on their laptops on reports. The reason they're doing reports is because that's all they are told to do day and night is write reports for the civilian review boards, that every time they arrest someone, they have to justify it 30,000 different ways to Sunday. They're typing up the reports, and the man kills them. You say, well, how could this happen? You could see, God forbid, it happening to one, but by then the other 3 would draw and kill him. You don't understand something. You have no idea the danger that an officer of the law is in virtually every minute of his life. You don't understand the stress they're under because you read the movie, you go to movies produced by the potheads who make it, schmucks like Oliver Stone who hate police, hate the military, hate America, and they make every cop look corrupt. They make every criminal look innocent, so you're brainwashed. But you don't really understand the danger they're in just by walking around in their blue uniform. You don't understand that they can be killed at any moment. You say, come on, you're just trying to kiss them. No, you got to listen to what I'm saying to you. How does a thing like this happen? Okay, let's run it back. They're sitting in a coffee shop. This guy who allegedly did it, Maurice, whatever his name is, could have just been another diner there having a cup of coffee. Meanwhile, he had in his mind he's going to kill him. He doesn't come running and saying, I'm going to kill you, because he wouldn't have gotten away with it. So he sits there and he waits and he watches. He's a psycho, and he's a cold-blooded murderer who never should have been let out of jail. He waits for a moment when all of their heads are away from him, and he walks up and he shoots them like ducks in a row. That's how it was done. It's as simple as that. It's the same with the Islamo-terrorist cells in the United States of America. They're very much like this murderer. They're psychotic. They're hiding. They're waiting, and every time and any time they see an opening and a weakness, they will take the shot at this country. Why? Because liberals have made it safe for them to do so. They understand that if the police had looked at this guy sitting at the counter and didn't like the way he looked, let's say one of the cops looked at him and his instincts in law enforcement and as a human being said, there's something about this guy I don't like. There's something about him, his eyes, he's jittery. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the cop would have gone up to him and talked to him, and he would have frisked him and seen if he had a gun. Then they would have done a search and seen he was on a record or whatever. Never would have happened. But because of the vermin in the legal profession, because of the rats in the media, because of the garbage in the government, every instinct in the FBI, every instinct in the CIA, every instinct in the police has been overridden by political cowardice. As a result, soldiers are dying, police are dying, and thanks to your liberal friends that is happening. New York City, WOR. Tom, you're on the Savage Nation. Topic, please.
Michael Savage, God bless you and your family. Michael, we continue to live in what you call the upside-down states of America. We prosecute our best and finest Navy SEALs for punching a terrorist in the mouth, while we give clemency to criminals. And we now have 9 children who have lost their parent and police officers to an execution in a coffee shop.
And they can't find them either. Where is he right now? Shot in the stomach. Where is he? Where is he hiding? What's he, in some liberal's house? Some good liberal who says he's taking him in because he's on the run?
Why wasn't one of the police officers on guard in a ready position, Michael? We have to change our rules of engagement.
Well, hold on. I had this discussion last night with an officer of the law who told me that it's not as this happens much more often than you may think. You know, they're human beings. They went into the coffee shop for a coffee. Who would have expected an executioner to be sitting there having a cup of coffee? Would you have ever expected that?
Never, but one should be in ready position at all times, Michael.
So in other words, the 3 of them should have been having coffee and one of them should have been standing and watching their back.
Yeah, perhaps something close to that, or at least be in a position of closeness to readiness in case of anything.
Well, again, I blame the ACLU. I blame the liberal establishment and liberal brainwashing. The same people who are trying to BS us about global warming, which doesn't exist. The same rats who were trying to destroy the greatest healthcare system in the world, telling us that it's not good enough to illegal aliens and every other slime bag on the planet, that they also need care and I should pay for it. The very same people who are running down the medical system have run the police off the road. So every one of their instincts were not operational. Even if they looked at this guy and said something's wrong with him, they couldn't have gone up to him. They would have lost their job.
How could a governor give clemency to 1,033 criminals, Michael? It's unbelievable.
Well, let me ask you something. Did you ever have faith in Huckabee as a potential Republican candidate for the presidency?
They said he was very weak on crime, and this really...
No, I don't know if you heard me. Did you ever have the feeling that this guy could be a viable candidate prior to this?
No, he was not one of my strong candidates, Michael.
So when you saw Huckabee with his own show on Fox, were you impressed that he was a genius and a great Republican candidate? I wasn't.
He seemed very, almost very weak conservative, Michael. I mean, maybe, pretend might be too strong of a word, but I wouldn't say strong.
Well, he's finished now, thank God. Let him go, do a tent. He can do a tent rally somewhere and get the people to come in. Along the lines of Elmer Gantry. That's about all he's good for. They should throw him off Fox News now, too. How many criminals did he release in his lifetime? Over 1,000? Why would he have done that?
1,000. They said one every 40 days it might have been.
But why? Why would Huckabee have done that? Because he was trying to curry favor with the liberal establishment. No other answer. So it's come out in the wash that he's a fraud. Another fraud along the line of many, many others, going back to Bob Dole, even possibly before him. Sad day in America. Thanks for the call. 1-800-449-8255, Spokane, Washington. Ken, welcome to the Savage Nation. What's on your mind? Go ahead, please.
Remembrance for these officers here in Washington State. Could you play the bagpipe piece that you've played in the past?
Sure, I can. I may not be at this second. I may do it at the end of this hour. But in Washington State, are people shocked by this, or are the liberals celebrating and opening bottles of champagne and high-fiving each other?
Well, that's what we get for letting these people run our country.
That's right. Liberalism is a dangerous mental disorder. And just as this guy was able to execute 4 cops, I am telling you as I sit here, the reason that the guy who was able to kill at Fort Hood, the same exact thing. People knew he was nuts. People knew he was dangerous. People knew he was an Islamist. People wanted to call him on it, but they were unable to do it because liberalism, the insanity, has stopped people from doing what they need to do to defend themselves. And that's why these cops are dead. The same exact thing. Play the bagpipes, please.
Officers, attend, present arms.